The following program is presented by the HTM Podcast Network.
Welcome to another episode of Turnbuckle Talk, presented by the HTM Podcast Network and in association with ndpw.com. Sponsored by collarandelbowbrand.com. Get 10% off when you use promo code JKPodcast at the checkout. In partnership with Phoenix at fnxfit.com. Get 15% off all your supplement needs when using promo code TBTalkPod at the checkout. Find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter by searching at TB Talk Pod. Listen on Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcast, Spotify and all those other podcatchers. And now, here are your hosts, Big Joe and Karl Karufel.
Hello, and welcome everybody. We are at episode 178. Today, Big Joe is on the show with me as usual. He's the creator, the one that got everything going, and then included me. Thank you, Big Joe, again for that, as we've talked about before. Big Joe, what have we got today?
Yeah, guys, another week has come and gone in the world of professional wrestling, but as usual, before we get rolling here, I figured, we'll kind of see what everybody's been up to. And for those watching on video, which the majority of you have been now, which has been very cool, you will notice that we have a third person with us today. We have, I forget how many times you've been on the show now, Rick, but we have RBV from over in the Hamin Media Group. Welcome back to Turnbuckle Talk, sir.
Well, gentlemen, yes, it is me. It's me. It's that honor, the beat of the V. Richard Bronson Vickrey of the Hamin Media Group. How many times has it been? Never enough with you two. As I say, the good times continue to roll on. But I do want to throw out there, gentlemen. Can I get a copy of that open? Let me generate something organic for you there instead of that robotic voice. You guys are coming off like a bunch of nerds that are up in Brandy Rhodes' inbox, DMing her those pecker picks. We got to get you the vibe there to open this thing.
Yeah, we'll definitely be looking into that.
Definitely. I can send you over whatever is needed, and that would be amazing.
For sure. All right, guys, let us kick off with our first topic. It's not really kind of current goings on professional wrestling, but it is currently what's kind of going on with Turnbuckle Talk here. And for those who have been paying attention, you will know that the Gorilla position recently was sold to another group, and we're no longer being featured. We're no longer part of the GorillaPosition.com. But with that sad news, there is some positive news here, Karl and RBV. We have a new partnership that we want to let everybody know about, and go ahead and roll that, Karl.
Why should you visit thechairshot.com? Thechairshot.com is your home for hard-hitting reviews, news, opinion, and analysis with attitude. Why? Because you're smarter than the average fan. Thechairshot.com. Always use your head.
So there you go, thechairshot.com. And that is kind of our new home alongside with NDPW. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Greg over at thechairshot.com and Mark Madison over at ProWrestlingPost.com, who helped kind of hook me up with him and to get things rolling there. It was it came together relatively quickly, and it was a cool thing. And this is going to be another platform where we get featured here, Karl. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be cool.
Me as well. I am super happy that you went through and were able to find somewhere else for us. I really appreciate that. That was good thinking on your part. And just thank you to thechairshot.com for them allowing us yet another platform to be able to broadcast our professional wrestling podcast, videocast, whatever you want to call it. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'd like to add real quick there,
yes.
Big Joe, by me jumping in. I'd like to congratulate thechairshot.com for going out there and getting such an amazing catch. When it comes to Turnbuckle Talk podcast, I know the passion, the effort, the drive, the desire, the fire, everything that you guys put in just behind the scenes to make this show go, and have been doing it for so long. He said, it's hard to find a better rapport out there between host and the reach that you have, the guests that you bring on, the topics that you to cover. A hell of a find for the Chairshot.com.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that we were going to be able to do our 200th episode with the gorilla position, with Mr. Ryan K. Bowman and Mr. Michael Malcor. But just because we're no longer partnered up with the gorillaposition.com doesn't mean that we still don't have access to these guys. So when we do come up with our 200th episode, I'm still kind of brainstorming to see what we're going to do for that. But I want to have make it a kind of a big deal, and I will definitely be including hopefully both of them, but if I can get either one of those two guys, like I said, the gorillaposition.com may have come to an end, but we still have a very strong friendship, and it's basically like family with those guys and with everybody that's on screen right now. So let's get to our first kind of real wrestling discussion here, guys. We're talking All Elite Wrestling, and they are possibly looking at adding a third hour to the Dynamite program. What are your guys' thoughts on this? I'll let our guest, Mr. RBV, go first on this. What do you think about a third hour of Dynamite?
Well, I'd seen this headline out there, and immediately to me, clicking at least on that link and then following up with a little bit deeper into the story. Initial headline was a little bit misleading, as I think this isn't necessarily serious talks going on right now, but it was more of a hypothetical. If there would be an option here to add that third hour, what might that look like for AEW? Mm-hmm. And as Cody goes on to elaborate inside of their discussion, it really would be something almost completely separate from what we're getting with the 2-hour block of Dynamite. So in my belief, if they were to go this avenue, you would see additionally is you'd get, that shortened version of Dark would be brought to the airwaves. I think what's really important to, when we're looking at this topic here, is this seems to be rooted in conversations and news that we had before, as the COVID pandemic swept across the globe, where there was actually talks between TNT and AEW about adding a second show, a second set of programming, another evening. And I think, that might have been stalled as, they're just working so diligently, so hard to try to get through just that one night, that 2-hour block. So again, I think this is all just hypothetical going down the road. Good idea, bad idea. I know immediately, fans think to the quality or the drop off in quality when it comes to Monday Night Raw when it goes to 3 hours. It becomes a much more, what I'm going to say here. I mean, it becomes much more of a pain in the butt. I just be very bland in what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Of having to create that content. But, a lot of people get on WWE about it, but it's not just that 3 hours of Raw. It's also the 2 hours of NXT, the 2 hours of SmackDown. So we're 5, 6, 7 hours. Then you've got the international television with main event, 7 pay-per-views. You might be looking at 10 hours in a week of content you have to create. You also have to look at if the network is happy with the actual numbers and what that's drawing in. Everybody likes to look at the head-to-head with AEW and NXT. Well, really, all they have to do is satisfy their own networks. We've talked regularly, and I've been on the show here. We've had private conversations about it. TNT is thrilled with the turnaround that they are getting, the return on their investment from AEW, because it is absolutely killing what they were previously running in those time slots. That's not necessarily the same case when you go over to USA when they were, doubling NXT numbers with reruns of Modern Family.
Yeah, absolutely. But before Karl goes first, I'll kind of give my 2 cents on this here. And just, immediately my response wants to be, no, don't do it. We don't want the 3-hour WWE Raw burnout to happen. Like Rick had mentioned, we have SmackDown on top of it. If you're a regular WWE viewer, you have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have NXT, plus you have any of the other WWE content that you wish to consume. Just a 3-hour show, that's damn near pay-per-view territory every single week. And I mean, no wonder the content gets watered down. You're spreading yourself so thin with the time frame. Just I'm cool with the third hour if it's a completely different entity, like Rick had said. If it's outside of the actual 3-hour window that is Dynamite, whether it's beforehand, whether it's a couple hours after or something, but something entirely separate, like a separate hour of programming outside of the show, I'm okay with that. But just all in one block, it's just too much. I mean, I love wrestling as much as the next guy out there, trust me. But I mean, 3 hours is a lot to sit through every single week on top of, if you want to watch OVW, if you want to watch Ring of Honor, if you want to watch New Japan, you see where I'm going with this, right? It's a lot of wrestling to watch, even just as podcasters to try and cover everything. It's a lot to consume. What do you think, Karl?
It definitely is a lot to consume, and it's something that we have talked about multiple times on this show about 3 hours with Monday Night Raw. It's just way too much.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch any show or movie that requires I wear a catheter, says Michael Manna. Yeah.
Stevie Richards.
I 100% agree with that.
I agree with you. Absolutely, Stevie. That's for those who aren't aware, that's Mr. Stevie Richards from the Hamin Media Group in our chat room here. I absolutely agree. I have personally had a catheter in person, and it is not fun. And I would liken it to watching weekly WDA programming. Shout out again to Stevie.
That's a family show here.
Well, we could mention a catheter. I mean, we don't have to go into the gory details about it, but yeah.
I do have to say, though, that if the programming is gripping, if it's actually got me at the edge of my seat going, holy crap, what's next? What's coming up? You got different movies that are out there. Let's say like some of the Lord of the Rings movies or something like that. They were a little bit longer. You're looking 2.5, 3 hours. But I was okay with that. I didn't have to pause or stop or leave the theater or whatever because I was enthralled with it. Mm-hmm. Whereas something with WWE right now, 3-hour programming, I don't even. No, I can't do it.
When you talk about those movies, Karl, you also need to realize that that's a niche audience. And right now, one of the biggest problems facing professional wrestling is they are stuck so deep inside that inside their own bubble. They're not doing anything to grow their brands. They're not doing anything to expand those audiences. Mm-hmm. So by adding more is not better. What is you're saying is, yes, we need that greater impact. Less is so much more. A greater impact, something that's enthralling, exciting, is going to keep people invested for the short term. There's hardly anything out there. I barely sit through a football game for 3 hours. That's why they give you a nice break there in the middle to get the hell up, get away from it, relax. And usually when you're watching a football game, or if you're like me, you're out at the pub, so you're interacting, you're doing everything else. But the football game just takes up a little bit of your time.
It really, really does. And Stevie's saying in the chat, but they didn't have to produce another Lord of the Rings movie the next week. Yeah, absolutely.
That's very true.
Very, very true.
That's right. We don't get 52 Lord of the Rings each year.
No, not anywhere near that. So yeah,
and even going back to Eric Bischoff is, it's well documented. When they added Thunder, it was a nightmare for him because they already gave him that third hour of Nitro. On top of that, they're trying to come up with the product. I guess if they were pressed, if the network absolutely wants this, you don't want to turn down that potential advertising, that revenue there. I guess the best route would be to keep that third hour as its own separate entity. Don't tie over from one to the other. Wrap up your storylines, different talents highlighted in those on that program, and then roll in or on the backside of Dynamite.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me to just put into simplest terms when it comes to this, I will always, always, always prefer quality versus quantity. I would rather watch one good solid hour of highly entertaining wrestling than 3 hours of, okay, is this done yet? I will always go with the first option. All right, guys, on to the next topic here. This one is a bit of a hot button issue for the past week, for a little bit longer, not just in wrestling, kind of society in general. Honestly, this comes up quite a bit. We're talking about digging up the past when it comes to professional wrestling, I guess, wrestlers in the business. And this topic largely stems from, if you've been paying attention to the news, Excalibur from AEW was found to have used the N-word, probably over a decade or so ago. I believe it was in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. And somebody was able to dig that up. And Off to sensitivity training for Excalibur on AEW. He wasn't on the most recent episode here. Let us start with you here, Karl. What's your take on digging up the past? Just kind of in general, it doesn't necessarily have to be wrestling, but we could try and keep it wrestling centric here. What's your take on this? Is this something that, are these people, is everybody always responsible for every single thing that they've done in their life? Is it always going to come back to haunt you every single time?
Unfortunately, yes, it is. Should it be? I don't think so. I really don't think that it should be. But is it going to? It definitely is, which is very unfortunate. Unfortunately, with the age of the internet, everything is out there and it's always going to be out there no matter what. So you could try to hide it. You could try to lie about it. You could try to say that, this didn't happen. But the proof is going to be there, and you're always now going to be held accountable for whatever actions were taken, even if it was 10 years ago.
For my take on this, I want to look at the incident itself, and I think looking at where it took place is very important too. We're talking about Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, which I believe is where this incident occurred. Sami Zayn at the time, he was El Generico. There were some other people involved, and to the best of my knowledge, from the little bit of digging that I've done with this, is that this was largely storyline, and it wasn't necessarily what he wanted to say. Kind of in the heat of the moment type of a thing. I think that this was largely storyline based, and now we're crapping all over this guy 10 plus years later for something that he did was probably part of a wrestling storyline, and then now it's like, oh, what a piece of garbage this guy is. I think it's going a little too far in this particular case. I'm not saying kind of in general, because obviously there's sometimes where it's obviously not acceptable, but in a pro wrestling context, we know sometimes that some of these companies, and this company in particular, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, they really like to push the envelope. I think that people they're not looking beneath the surface on this particular incident. What do you think, Rick?
I think what we really have to examine here is, I like how you mentioned, let's look at society as a whole here. In this time of uncertainty, we have got this panic and sensitivity turned up to 10. Like in professional wrestling, you take that persona, you turn it up to 10, hit 11, rip the knob off. Well, now we're dealing with this uncertainty, this panic, this oversensitivity towards issues. Everybody in all these different cases, they're looking for a single blanket answer. Well, that's not the case. Everything each situation needs to be, defined by its own parameters. Another hot button issue right now is kids going back to school. I'm sure you guys are having the same issues up there in Canada. Well, guess what? What works in New York City is not going to work in the middle of Ohio here. Mm-hmm. What works in the cornfields of Ohio isn't going to work in a big city like Cincinnati or Columbus. Each school district is going to be different in there. So I think when we look at these vulgar statements that have been put out there, if it's of sexual nature, if it's racial, whatever it might be, context is king. We need to examine each situation and then take the appropriate actions. Either one of you gentlemen believe that Excalibur in any way holds overly hatred towards any other ethnic group?
I highly, highly doubt it.
I mean, yeah, we don't personally know him or been in locker rooms with him with anything like that, but this is the only instance that we're hearing about this. And we're going back years here into a wrestling script that was actually proposed by the Human Tornado, who indeed himself is African-American. He said, let's get that heat out there. Mm-hmm. They were playing to a very niche audience there at Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. So we have to take all of that into consideration.
Yep.
Now, overall, at the end of the day, was it the best idea in the world? No. Even back then? Probably not. But to sit here and now say that, okay, now you've got to go through weeks of sensitivity training. You have to forfeit your paycheck. That is absolute BS. But on the other side of the coin there, AEW, Social Justice Warrior Wrestling, they have made their bed. They have to lay in it. They have set this standard. So now going forward, any kind of incident like this, they're going to have to be held overly accountable.
And they are. And for those that don't understand, I mean, that essentially started with Sammy Guevara. He had, years ago or a little while ago had made some remarks about, I believe it was Sasha Banks, and they held him accountable for that. And now it's always going to be that way with AEW. They're going to be accountable, and they're going to have to hold people accountable, or else they're going to be like, oh, what kind of favoritism is this now? Oh, because this person, and then that it's just going to be, always it's the new norm, as is said all over the world today. This is going to be the new norm for at least All Elite Wrestling.
Well, it's, even further, when it comes to race, AEW goes out and announces, which I don't even really understand why they felt the need to do this, but they're going to pound their chest and make that social stance because they're representing this new generation, wrestling's for everyone, blah, 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 BS, where they banned the Hogans, not just Hulk, but Linda, from ever participating with anything to do with the promotion. What is that all about? I mean, I can get maybe, people are pressuring, pressing, asking questions about involvement with Hulk Hogan. Maybe he's just saying, we prefer, to distance ourselves from those generations. We're moving forward. There's other ways, that you avoid those certain backing yourself in those corners. But Linda Hogan, what the hell? I don't know. I listen to pro wrestling podcast every day. If it's, you gentlemen, if it's my brothers over on the Hamin Media Group, all across the board, if it's veterans of the business, I don't think I've ever heard anybody clamoring for the return of Linda Hogan inside the world of professional wrestling. It's absolute BS. But overall, as we look at society where everything now is seemingly offending someone, and you have these major corporations willing to kneel down and bow at the whim of these social justice warriors, it's absolute BS. To paraphrase something that Michael Jargo has said regularly, once everything becomes offensive, nothing will be offensive.
It's that is very, very true. And to give maybe a bit of an extreme example, and if Stevie's still in our chat or still watching here, you can definitely relate to this one. If New Jack would have been around these days, could you just imagine even trying to attempt, not even the everything that was done with him, even just like one instance? I mean, Twitter and the social justice warriors would be having a heyday. And this guy wouldn't be able to work anywhere.
They can have their heyday, because it's interesting you mentioned somebody like New Jack with that not just old school, but I mean that extreme old school mentality. I had the opportunity this morning on the Monday Locker Room, part of the Hamin Media Group at hackerhamin.podbean.com, to sit and listen and grow under that learning tree of just a brief conversation with Rip Rogers. And one of the points that he hammered home to us, inside the world of professional wrestling, they need to stop letting the marks and smarks dictate the direction of the business. You need to stop pandering to their wants and needs and just realize what a consumer wants and feed that need.
Well, that's definitely a good point with that.
That's right on the head. You've hit it right there.
And that's I'm just repeating from the hustler himself, the man that's been responsible for, the likes of John Cena, Randy Orton. Who else do we have? Batista.
Yep.
Cody Rhodes himself. All of those names that OVW built that are superstars still today that WWE relies on, because their own current system can't produce those same superstars.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. And you had mentioned John Cena, their example, when he was doing the Thugonomics routine. That probably wouldn't have flown today either. You would have people whining, complaining about that one too. It's being insensitive, or it's being racist or whatnot. So, yeah, it's interesting to see how things have evolved in respect to that. Next topic here, guys. This was something that Rick had actually turned me on to when I was working to correct myself, night job. I said day job earlier, so I have to make it clear. I work at night job, apparently. And Rick told me about this show called Talk and Shop Mania. And so I'm like, what is this? And who's doing this? And until I was finally able to pry the information out of Rick here. This was done by Karl Anderson and Doc Gallows. Obviously, there's some affiliation here with Impact. And we had Rocky Romero as well. We had quite a few very notable names on this. Did you get a chance to check this out at all here, Karl?
As of yet, I have not.
Okay.
Everybody knows that my night job, quote unquote night job, usually has me working at least 6 days a week. So I have not been able to order and watch this as of yet. But from conversations that I have seen on Facebook between Mr. RBV and others, I definitely do want to see this. It looks as though, and from what I was reading, it sounds like it was a hoot of a time.
Before I throw it over to RBV, I'll give my little take on this. I was able to watch this show in a perfectly legal manner. And did get a chance to watch it. And I got to say, just kind of general opinion, I got to say, very silly and stupid, but highly entertaining at the same time. There were some legitimate moments here, especially in the quote unquote main event. I mean, where I was legitimately laughing and thoroughly enjoying myself. I found it definitely entertaining. But there is a few catches when it comes to this, and I'll throw this over to Rick, because I think he could probably explain this better when it comes to this, and I think he knows what I'm talking about, of how this is being perceived outside of the wrestling bubble that we occupy.
Well, going into this thing, it was just going to be 100% pure wrestle crap, and that's absolutely what it was. But to me, what worried me is that when you walk that fine line between parody and just outright mocking professional wrestling. One of the positives I can say about it, it seems that this thing, and that's exactly who it was created for, it remains deep inside of the SMARC bubble. I mean, there's so many individuals just, still within inside the wrestling bubble that didn't even know this thing existed. So this was made for your ultra SMARC. I'm hoping that's where it remains. Because I don't want this to cross over into general PR. I don't want to turn on, the daytime talk on ESPN or FS1 and see them running certain clips from this thing, those that they're allowed, because, I mean, they're going for the F-bomb record. Big Ray's Dildo Emporium is represented throughout this thing. It's very risque, but when it crosses that line and those types of programs start running with this thing, it turns into a Joey Ryan dick flip situation, where now you've got people, instead of wanting to tune in and see what's going on with professional wrestling, and as we were talking about earlier, and growing those audiences, they're just laughing at, the key word is at, pro wrestling. That's what kind of bothered me about it. But I do got to say, a hat tip to the guys that put this together. They realized that there are a bunch of fanatic SMARCs that are going to fork up. They're getting $15 a pop this thing on Fight. Now they've gone ahead, just like you fine gentlemen do. They have teamed up with Collar and Elbow. They have got a full line of apparel merchandise getting ready to be launched here for this thing. They are going to make a pretty penny with this thing. Ultimately, that's what we're here for, or they're there for inside of the business, is to turn a profit.
And they definitely knew their audience going into this, and they definitely catered to it. And a good portion of it was definitely a big middle finger to WWE specifically. I mean, there were a lot of hints and pokes and prods there, and specifically in the very last match for the show. I know you didn't get a chance to watch this here, Karl, but Rick and I can definitely give our takes on this. In the WWE at WrestleMania, we had the Boneyard match. Well, at Talkin' Show Mania, we had the Boner Yard match. What did you think of the Boner Yard match, Rick? I gotta say, for again, as silly and stupid as this was, I was laughing quite heartily throughout this entire thing. I have to admit, I enjoyed it.
I think I chuckled a couple of times. And again, to me, and even more so than just popping a few chubbies for some ultra SMARCs. One of the bigger issues here is it walks that fine line.
Yeah,
one of the
really
things
does.
that we're missing in pro wrestling, I've said it here on your guys' show before, I regularly, kind of beat this drum, is what pro wrestling is missing, that we are no longer in awe of the superstars.
Yep.
And that's the reason we've got cosplay Jesus and Scooby-Doo throwing super kicks on Sean Spears inside the ring. We've gotten into a generation where we're not in awe of the superstars. Fans actually believe they can be the superstars. So now what I've seen here, what they presented, it was, low budget. They're going to turn a huge profit. I said, it's nothing against those guys that put this thing together. They knew their market, but it's going to, relay that message that anyone can do this. And we're going to have a bunch of copycat stuff to me, I'm just worried it's going to snowball and get out of control.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. I don't think this is going to get huge kind of mainstream appeal. Sorry, and I think it definitely should stay that way. If some of the mainstream news networks, were to get a hold of this, I'm sure that it could potentially give professional wrestling a bad name. Yeah,
it's not. I mean, no one's going to in a serious platform going to run with this thing, but it could end up in a comedy clip. And again, it's people laughing at wrestling.
I understand.
And comedy's great in wrestling. Yeah. I mean, we've all seen Karl's matches. We laugh our ass off.
That's right.
But for the right reason.
So now for somebody that like myself who has not seen it yet, but has seen a lot of people on like Facebook and Twitter and stuff, kind of not necessarily going off in a bad way about this, but kind of like enjoying what they saw. Is this more of a shot at professional wrestling, or would you call it more a bunch of guys getting together and just letting loose, having some fun, and actually making some money from it? How would you like?
Personally, I would liken it more to the second one, more like just kind of letting loose and having some fun. And as Rick mentioned, it does walk a very fine line between having fun and poking fun. So, and I thought they personally, I thought that they struck a fairly nice balance there.
Well, and again, I understand the point, the purpose behind it. I don't know if Stevie's still with us here, I can make that comparison. You go back, you used to be able to laugh and have a lot of fun, and you really enjoyed the antics of the BWO as they poke fun at the NWO. And that's what you kind of got a lot of this here is it's maybe at some point that the actual talents themselves aren't so bitter. They realize it's a business, but there is that perception amongst fans that it's like, oh my God, how could you fire me? That big middle finger. So they're playing to that, and it's that parody. I'm not completely opposed to this thing. I don't want to completely knock it, to sound like I'm coming off like a cornet or somebody here, but just to walk that fine line. And believe me, I think this is going to stay buried deep inside with the bubble, but walking that fine line where you're mocking professional wrestling to the point where we could possibly be growing it. Other individuals are simply laughing at it.
I totally understand that sentiment. All right, guys, let us, before we go to our viewer question for this week, peel back the curtain a little bit on this particular topic. Let's take a little bit of a break here and hear from one of our sponsors here. Karl, do you want to hit the old break thing, or do you want me to see if I can get it again this week?
Go ahead and do it yourself.
Okay, let's see. Let us hear from our friend Al Snow over at collarandelbowbrand.com.
Wrestling. A love and a passion we all share. I've started a wrestling brand, the wrestling brand. A brand founded on the aspects of wrestling. Two entities working together to create a product that connect emotionally for people everywhere. Collar and Elbow is the brand. Passion and love for wrestling is the drive. I am Al Snow, and this is Collar and Elbow, the wrestling brand.
The dictionary defines hero as a person who is admired or idealized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. Being a hero in life is far more than words printed on a page. It takes an unwavering code, a compass that points true north, always. And in times like these, it takes sacrifice. Hero shouldn't be a word defined by a dictionary. It's a word that should be defined by the best of us. Hero has a new definition.
So there you go, a little word from Colin Elbow and our friend Al Snow. I love that, especially that first segment. Just hearing him talk about professional wrestling, even just to him, you can sense the passion and the love and the desire for professional wrestling. And that definitely comes across in the apparel and in the people who also buy it. It's that combined love and passion for wrestling that kind of brings us all together, even us now here on Turnbuckle Talk. So it's a great representative of that whole philosophy with professional wrestling. That's why I love the Collar and Elbow brand.
And we do have to make sure that we let you know that we are Collar and Elbow's first sponsored podcast.
Yep.
We were the first ones to jump on the bandwagon as a podcast, and they allowed us to come on and be part of the family. And we're so happy and thankful for that. And if you guys want to, go to collarandelbowbrand.com. If you use promo code JK Podcast, all one word, you will get yourself 10% off your entire order. As well, that helps us because we get a small kickback from that. So to continue to bring you these podcasts over StreamYard as a video cast, or to put it out onto the platform of Podbean like we do every Tuesday, that extra little bit that comes in definitely helps, and we appreciate anybody that goes and uses our promo code.
Absolutely.
When you go to Collar and Elbow to get your Boner Yard shirt, think Big Joe and Karl.
That's right.
Fantastic. Good catch, Rick. All right, let's go to our viewer question for this week. And this one, again, may seem a little silly to the seasoned wrestling fan out there, but there are some people that are new to watching professional wrestling, and they want to get a little insider knowledge. They want to just to peel back the curtain a little bit to get some insider knowledge here. And this is a relatively simple one this week here, guys. Are chair shots real? And I'll throw this over to Karl first. Being an in-ring competitor for quite a number of years. Tell us about chair shots. What's it all about?
Well, first off, kayfabe is dead,
Yep.
so we can talk about this. RBV down there shaking his head no. I would like to think that kayfabe is not dead, but unfortunately, in today's age,
kayfabe just needs to be allowed to evolve. But that's we can do a whole nother show on that.
Absolutely,
you're definitely
Good
we
idea,
could.
actually.
So I will peel back the curtain just a little bit, so to speak, with chair shots. I have been subjected to chair shots before. I can tell you that it's real. It's not a fake chair.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like plastic made to look like metal. It's actually metal. Now there's different types of metal that are out there, right? You got steel, you got aluminum, you got like all these different types of metals that are out there. When I was working, they generally tried to find like an aluminum chair just because it was lighter and could not give as much damage in real life, so to speak. Still looked amazing, and don't get me wrong, I've been hit by actual steel chairs as well, but it's all in how it's done. As with a ballet, the performance is all in how it's done. The same with the professional wrestling business, how it's done, how you take it, how it's given. So as you can see in the photo there, it looks really good. It sounds really good. But was there actual physical damage that happened? Probably not. If you see the way that, and it looks like John Cena down there getting hit by Edge with a concerto. You look, the top of the chair is pretty much hitting the top of the other chair, which is going to give you that amazing sound. And as long as No Cell Cena sells it properly, it looks amazing. And that's what it is. And then people are talking about headshots with the chairs as well. Look closely. The majority of them nowadays, with all of the talks about concussions and the repercussions from concussions, people are putting their hand up. So they're very quick with it. They're very smooth with it. a chair is coming at them. They've got their hand up super quick. It's hitting their hand instead of actually hitting their head. And then they just sell the move properly. That's what it's all about. So chair shots in wrestling, are they real? Yeah, they're real. They're real chairs. Somebody's, really swinging that. There's a real sound that comes from it. So, I mean, I don't know how much more to really say. Yes, they're real.
I've always said, when I've been asked, are they really getting hit with this chair? I always kind of say yes and no. It depends on the scenario. If the chair is just kind of being swung at their back, typically it'll make contact with their back. It's really, especially when it's an open view, it's nearly impossible to quote unquote fake that. Going for the head, outside of the Attitude Era, and unless your name is Cody Rhodes, typically the chairs are making direct contact with your head because we can't sustain feuds and whatnot if we're constantly cracking each other in the head legitimately with a chair every single time. So it's got to be done in a way to look really good. And a lot of times it depends, especially if it's being shown on TV, how it's shot with the camera to make it look good. But we can't just be legitimately smoking each other in the head all the time, especially. So
I got to say, this subject seems a little suspicious. I mean, someone actually sent in a question about a chair shot the same week that you guys are joining thechairshot.com.
Seems like a coincidence, right? And you would be correct. It is entirely a coincidence. I gotta say, I
don't want you to pull back the curtain or anything here, but I don't know, it just seems a little odd to me. You guys are right. It's one of those things that, in like so many aspects of professional wrestling, it's that fine line. It's very real across the board. Anything just slightly could go wrong. You could have a serious injury on your hands. And throughout the years, the different eras and styles, they have worked to protect the chair shot different ways. If it's from, trying to use a hand to soften that blow to, using more so where you slide it down off the back of the shoulder, top of the back, to the ultra violent extreme style where, they're selling that reality of it and they're just openly blasting one another upside their heads. I would think in 2020, what we know medically and when it comes to the seriousness and the long-lasting effects of concussions, that you're not going to see that across the board. When we talk about top promotions, like WWE, they've gone so far to ban the headshot with the chair. And I would hope that no matter where you are around the globe, that even to the mom and pop VFW independents, that they realize the seriousness behind the long-term effects here, and if they would follow suit when it comes to, openly a chair shot to the head.
Absolutely. So, to whoever sent in that question, great question for
if you're whoever you are, Charlie from Starksville.
But as always, we appreciate questions and keep them coming. I love addressing them on the show and talking to them, especially if it has to do with some inside knowledge. Having Karl as a co-host makes those questions easy and fun to answer. So keep those coming. Let's get to a little bit of breaking news because, since I wrote the run and sent it to you guys here, there have been some things that have happened. And I guess the most notable thing right off the bat, I'm not sure if Karl really has a graphic ready for this, but we are talking the XFL is back in the headlines here, guys. And we have some interesting news regarding this. The Rock and Redbird Capital have purchased the XFL to the tune of $15 million. Let's start with you, Rick. What's your take on Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, being part owner and part just buying the XFL? What do you think? Does this mean that they're coming back, or what's the deal here?
Well, there's so many details that still need to be released. What was actually available for sale there? Was it, a tape library? I don't think so much. The short existence, the inventory. But absolutely got to say, this is a steal. 15 mil?
Yeah.
To go in here and purchase the remains of an entire sports league. As this had broke when we were closing out this morning's episode of the Monday Locker Room, as we were live right here on StreamYard on Twitch, right at the close here. And one of the things that, that people have to question, those backdoor dealings, especially inside professional wrestling, is somewhere deep inside of this. We know we got The Rock on the surface. It is the mastermind. Are we going back to, it was me, Austin. It was me all along. is Vince tied into this somehow? Because we heard rumors a couple of weeks ago that he might try to buy this thing. Buy everything back through the bankruptcy courts and all that. So there's so much, and maybe they're going to not like rebrand, but restructure.
That could be
everything that we see. Well, we see that there was somewhat of a marketplace for this, that there was a desire for this form of football, especially in St. Louis. And you saw that they were they were starving for some form of professional football. They were gravitating towards it. I mean, is there other markets that they could, move some teams from? I think, again, you're looking at, you want those major markets, but I just don't think there's enough of that slice of that pie, especially coming out of this COVID era, like in a New York. Mm-hmm. Can we go somewhere else where they could support something like this?
And, obviously not everybody is in favor or necessarily a big fan of the XFL. Of our loyal viewers here, Don Lewis, saying they should just let the XFL die. It's just dumb.
We can also look at right now. I mean, what is the marketplace like? Where could they grab their slice of the pie? We have seen right now, and we could spin off into a whole other subject onto this.
Yeah.
But there is a major backlash. The NHL, the NBA, MLB, they are looking at wrestling-esque ratings just because people are tuning in because they want sport, and they're getting a political news platform instead.
Yeah.
And it's not to dismiss any of what's going on with COVID, with racial tensions, any of those items. Those are very serious issues. But at some point, you need that release. And as society, so many of us were looking for that in the return of sports. I know when I tuned into it, I'll give them 5 minutes. I'll give them 5 minutes. Yep. Get through all that. Then I want sports. And once we get into those, they start pushing those boundaries, I'm gone.
Yep.
And I think, it's proving now. We've seen, MLB and NBA with numbers in the low millions to, 700,000.
Yeah, nothing great.
So maybe if you came in and you avoided all of that, I don't know. There's still so much that there's to learn about this situation.
For sure. Before we get to our Match of the Week segment here, not breaking news, but since we have you on here, Rick, I wanted to kind of get your take on this topic and to follow up with Karl on this as well. I haven't really heard much more about this. So, I mean, I guess it's potentially still a possibility here of WWE looking to host SummerSlam on a boat. What do you think of this, Rick?
At this rate, I think the interest level, they could have this thing on something similar to what Karl enjoyed with the Jericho cruise, or they could have it on a dinghy on a rowboat. I don't think that they're
no.
To me, if they're looking at this thing as a PR stunt to try to draw some extra interest to this, no. The bottom line is you can put all the frills into this thing you want. Bad television is bad television. You have a plethora of superstars that no one cares about, even to the extent you have Seth Rollins in an interview this week openly talking about, once again, the Monday Night Messiah putting his foot in his mouth, going out and just openly saying that, oh, yeah, our women's division is seriously lacking without Becky and Charlotte. And then he tries to correct, no pun intended here, the ship by saying they're trying really hard. They're putting in the work. Well, no, you just told us that, Seth, you just told us they suck.
Yeah.
That this is a step down. Why should we be tuning in? They're not, even the coworkers are not capable of building up new stars.
Yeah.
So we don't have any stars to invest in. And these storylines are just beyond awful.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to the point now that, really across the company, they're only running like 4 major storylines. They're just recycling them. And you got, just within the last couple of weeks, you had people running around with titles that they didn't rightfully win, claiming to be champions. You had that going on with R-Truth and Sasha Banks. Both of your world title pictures where you had McIntyre and Dolph were about, I made you, I brought you to the show, I brought you up. And then the same story being told with Braun and Bray. You've got factions trying to recruit people that are getting turned down left and right. They're only running a handful of really bad storylines.
I'll dust off an old expression I don't think I've used in quite a while. Polished turd is still a turd.
Right.
So you can make it look all nice and shiny, but if it's still a turd, it's still a turd, guys. I mean, it's just the cold hard reality of it. So to me, just
land, sea, or air,
it's
WWE still sucks.
Yes, absolutely. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yeah. To kind of go along with that, with the rumors and speculations that are going on, there's even speculation that WWE might want to take SummerSlam to Indonesia because they have 0 COVID-19 cases.
Wow. I've heard Saudi Arabia as well. Yeah.
I mean, you can have people. You can have an arena full of people, and that's what. Well, if you take a look, over that way.
Yep.
That person right there has always been complaining about there's no fans and it's just not the same.
True.
So the WWE could potentially do something like that. Will they? I doubt it, because we're coming up. It's so freaking close right now to becoming a show. And I think it's just going to happen at the Performance Center, as every other show has happened right now. Yeah. Maybe if this COVID stuff is still going on, maybe like a Survivor Series is something that they can possibly look towards to take somewhere else that will allow. But other than that, I don't know, right? Rick's got something there. What you got, Rick?
I was just thinking, they've been wanting to kill Survivor Series for how many years now?
Yeah.
Since they got away from the traditional format. Maybe for WWE, it might be a blessing in disguise because they won't even be allowed to have the traditional Survivor Series matches with social distancing.
No, you just can't.
Right?
You just can't. All right.
What would that mean for the Rumble?
Yeah, I'm wondering if they can even do that at this point. They may have to maybe make that more like a gauntlet style match. I think it'd be about the only way you could do the Rumble at this point.
Oh God, that would be terrible.
That would be terrible. But speaking of terrible, let's go to things that are not terrible here. At least I would hope so. And let's go to our match of the week segment here, guys. All right, Rick, with you being the guest on here, I will let you go first. Let us tell you, I've already had a sneak peek at this, but what was your match of the week for this past week here? This one, I think, is kind of inspired by your experience this week, correct?
Yeah, just this morning, in honor of the Hustler, Rip Rogers, we had talked about here on the show today, less is more. Mm-hmm. I got a match for everyone. It's free for everyone. Just go over to YouTube and search Rip Rogers versus Giant Baba from All Japan. It happened back on January 28th, 1990. This is going to take you all of 2 minutes and 45 seconds to watch. And the in-ring action is probably about 30, or the physical action's about 30 seconds. What's so masterful about this, and less is more, and the personality and how someone can get themselves over, especially in front of an audience, as we know the Japanese fans are. It's wrestling to this day, and especially back then, a true sport. But the flamboyancy and the way he works it and kind of gets you in and then stalls back. He's going for those ropes and realizes that when he's measuring up, Giant Baba, he's going to hold back a little bit here. Starts off the match, he's combing his hair, he's getting himself prepped up. They absolutely cannot stand it, but they're kind of, they get into it. They're enthralled by the act, so they're joining along. Masterful piece of work here. One of the things I want to put out, everybody thinks in today's wrestling, you got to have these high flying spots. You got to get over. Pro wrestling is about persona and moments.
Yep.
And if you are a talent and if 95% of the time you got to be off your feet to get over, you're not going to get over.
That's a fair statement. All right, for myself here, I believe that for the first time, I think I might have a repeat on my match of the week, because I believe I have picked this one before, but I'm going to pick it again because I came across it, and I think I've watched it probably 4 or 5 times since I came across it again. I enjoyed it that much. This was coming from 2016 with the Ring of Honor Reach for the Sky Tour, and this particular match happened in Liverpool, and this was actually Marty Scurll's very first match inside of Ring of Honor versus Dalton Castle. this match went just over about 22 minutes, I believe. And I mean, just a fantastic back and forth. I mean, you want to talk, two great wrestlers and two great characters inside of professional wrestling. And just to end that match, Marty with that umbrella shot to Dalton's head, followed by a referee stoppage. I mean, just a great match. I would say pretty much the exact opposite of Ric's match of the week. A longer drawn out match with a lot more kind of going on. But free to watch on YouTube right now, and go check it out. Just search Marty versus Dalton Castle, and that'll probably be the first one that comes up for you. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it if you do call yourself a wrestling fan.
I thought that Ric's pick there was pretty great. A 30-second match, and Ric gave us a 5-minute explanation of a 30-second match. It was just fantastic. Yeah. He's talking about back in 1990. My match of the week actually is coming from the year before that.
Interesting.
We're looking 1989. I came across this as most people know. We came up on the anniversary of Roddy Piper's passing just recently. So I went to the WWE Network because I still pay for it because I enjoy watching these classic things. So I went back and I found some Roddy Piper, and I found something that was a little bit different than what you would normally see. They called it a lost tape, I guess. There was no commentary. It was just like a hard cam. It seemed like a hard cam, but then during the entrance, they panned over and then came back again. And it was just seemed very amateurish, I guess you could almost say. But the match itself was Piper versus Rick Rude that happened on October 31st, 1989. Just classic professional wrestling. Awesome. Roddy Piper comes out there. Somebody's got a big banner sign that they had made that they brought with them that said ravishing Roddy Piper. And it was like just great. So he grabbed that from the fan, got into the ring, was holding up this sign that said ravishing Roddy Piper. Just classic, great stuff coming from Roddy. Nice. Then he took his kilt off and he used it as almost like a Toro bull flag that he was holding. And Rick Rude comes running at him, and he it was just great stuff. Within the matchup as well, Roddy Piper grabs the legs of Rick Rude and pulls him, and he's down on the mats. And then Piper's trying to wiggle out to get him outside of the ring, and then your Rick Rude grabs the legs of the referee, Earl Hebner. Shout out to Earl.
Yep.
And Earl, does the whole, shake, and then Earl falls down, and then there's a double down that happens, and then the ref is down, and then it was just a classic matchup. And I was just sitting there going, I'm loving this. Why can't we have this now? This is just, I love it. And that was October 31st, 1989. Roddy Piper versus Rick Rude, and that is my match of the week.
Very interesting choice. I may have to go and check that out because that includes one half of, the one half of that match was my favorite professional wrestler of all time, Mr. Roddy Piper. And Rick Rude, how cool and how great of a villain was he? He would literally usually have the face of the wife of his opponent basically on his crotch on his attire. So just harkening back to the fantastic days of professional wrestling, that's when I'm gonna definitely have to go and check it off to hit you up for a link or where exactly to find that, because I want to watch that now that you've talked about it. All right, guys, let us end off the show here with our final segment for this week. Let's do our Showstopper segment. All right, so this week's Showstopper segment really just kind of revolves around, I'll let Karl put up the graphic, and I think that's a good thing to name the topic here, and it's just no respect. And this topic largely stems from one particular individual, and I'm sure we'll maybe find some others, or we'll kind of build off of this topic here. But recently, over in AEW, Cameron, formerly from the WWE, was brought, she was signed to a deal, I believe she's going to be there on the regular, and I found it really that one in particular, I know they've signed some other talent recently as well. It was one that really kind of made me scratch my head because going back to her Tough Enough days, she was very verbal and was quoted as saying, "I don't even like wrestling. So let's bring her into this new company to have her wrestle." For me, it felt really strange that you would bring in somebody that essentially doesn't even like her necessarily. I can't say for certain that she doesn't respect wrestling, but right going back to the beginning, it definitely felt that way. It was just like somebody in it for the wrong reasons. And that's kind of what has sparked this topic here. So, again, with Rick being our guest here, I'll let him go first and let him give his take on this.
So, Joe, are you pulling a 180 from one of our kickoff conversations? You want to hold somebody accountable for a statement they made years ago. You're going to refuse to let them grow as an individual, as a professional, simply because they said something years ago that struck you the wrong way.
But, I mean, to point my finger specifically at Cameron, has she even, since she left WWE, has she done anything in wrestling? Like, as far as I know, she hasn't really been doing very much. Well, that's what made it seem so odd. It was just, you bring in this person that didn't even seem to like wrestling in the first place, and then now you're bringing her in to do something she doesn't like to do. Or I get from what you're saying, her opinion or her outlook in this has changed, correct?
Well, I don't know to the extent. I don't know if she's head over heels ready to make this incredible jump into the deep end of professional wrestling.
Yep.
But again, as we talk about blanket answers and looking at each individual circumstance, we don't know all the details of this or what her role is going to be inside of this. I know you were immediately put off picture. You and I had this conversation right when it happened that you felt, someone else could have been in that spot. Mm-hmm. But what if this spot is set up? Obviously, they could play that card where she is going to generate tremendous heat because she had that stance on professional wrestling all those years ago, and maybe hasn't been as regularly active throughout the years. But she has been out there growing her own brand, working in the fitness world. And when she had spent her time coming up inside WWE, learning or tentatively learning, trying to learn those ropes, she obviously developed a close relationship with Brandy Rhodes. I mean, that's got to be your connection here. Yeah. Anywhere in life that you're going to get, it's about who you know. It's something you regularly hear. Was something that was overly stressed this morning by Rick Rogers inside of wrestling. It's about who you travel with, who you know, where they go, those connections that you make. I mean, obviously, that's why they went and got her here. It could be something on the very cheap for them. Yeah. She's going to come in here, get a little bit of exposure. She can push her fitness brands, her modeling, whatever it might be. And you look at the pairing here with her and Nyla Rose, that inside of itself makes complete sense, where Nyla's going to have to go out there and do all of this work and carry her stuff, which is going to make her look like, that over-the-top monster that she should be. But to your point about those that get into the business simply because they don't respect it. Now, I don't want to say that these individuals didn't respect professional wrestling, but we could talk about some of the biggest names of our lifetimes and trace, their beginnings. They weren't growing up dreaming of breaking into the business, actively seeking out where can I learn, who can train me, who can get me in the door.
Yep.
It came down to the green, baby. It was all about money. This is a business. Now, I understand, at some points, and it's just not wrestling. It's, you see it in sports regularly. Oh, these overpaid millionaires, I'd go out there and do it for free or a fraction of it. Mm-hmm. Well, if you did, you're an idiot. Yeah. Because this is a job to those individuals.
True.
I mean, you guys, Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, The Rock, on and on and on. I mean, and so many of these guys that you hear about, they were just, gym rats, working in bars, bouncers.
Yeah, they never fully intended that. Yeah.
Come try professional wrestling. But then once you kind of, dip your toe into that pool, it's a hell of a lifestyle. You get that rock and roll. Especially if you're coming from that nightlife. And then, you're seeing six figures, whatever the case might be. If you get that upper echelon, into the millions, anywhere you want to go, back in the day, the drugs, the alcohol, again, that rock and roll lifestyle, then you fall in love with that lifestyle. Yeah. And then it just becomes your second nature.
Yeah. And to kind of approach this topic a little bit different way too. I mean, there are some people that have attempted, I guess would be the best way to kind of put it, to get into professional wrestling, kind of maybe just kind of playing off of the family lineage. I would think that, one of the more notable examples, and Karl might not like me for mentioning her, but I'll mention her because that's kind of how I felt. Noelle Foley. She was somebody that tried to get into wrestling. You could tell that, she had a bit of a want, but she didn't have that passion and that desire to really kind of fully do it. She definitely had the look, but, immediately I know when I saw her kind of working in the ring, quote unquote, just smiling all the time and being scared to bump and whatnot, that she just, she wasn't going to do it. But what's your overall take on this, Karl? Do you feel like there's anybody that has gotten into some notoriety, but just doesn't give a damn or never really cared about wrestling? Is there anybody that you can think off the top of your head, or somebody that comes to mind?
Honestly, there isn't. I mean, coming back to what Rick had said there, like I am in agreement with Rick on everything that he said. I mean, people change, their likes change, their dislikes change. So, I mean, for a while, sure, maybe she wasn't, wholeheartedly into it. And then Rick was talking about other athletes that have gotten in, or this wasn't their first thing, right? Ron Simmons, right?
Yep.
Mark Henry,
Kurt
Angle,
bodybuilder,
yeah. Kurt Angle, Batista,
yep.
R-Truth,
yep.
Right? Like those are all names of people that not necessarily wanted professional wrestling to be their life, but made it their life.
And even Rick had mentioned, people can change. Myself, just in the course of having this conversation, my take on this has changed. You guys haven't necessarily changed my mind, but you've kind of, talked some reason to me. And I mean, even look at literally one of the biggest names of all time. The first quote unquote Hall of Famer, Mr. Andre the Giant. One of my personal favorites, especially being a French Canadian. I mean, this guy at the beginning had no intentions of being a professional wrestler. He was just discovered, I believe, like in a gym or in something like some way like that. And he's single-handedly probably the biggest legend in professional wrestling of all time. And he probably had no intentions on ever being a professional wrestler. I mean, thank God somebody discovered him, right? So sometimes that can happen that way, and we end up with some really cool things can happen. So yeah.
And going to Rick's point again, it seems as though a lot of mid-card stars, I guess you could say, are trying to push a different agenda, trying to push their thing. Like Rick was saying, right? Like Cameron's got this whole fitness thing. Well, what a better platform for her to do than to go to AEW, one of the hottest things on the television screens right now. You got the demo god there, and he's pushing everything and making things amazing with AEW. Not everybody shares the same sentiment about AEW, but I digress. It's a platform is what it is. And it's something that she's worked in before, has some knowledge in, has been in the ring and taken those bumps, but is now able to go out there and push her thing as well. So it's just another platform or avenue, it seems like, for Cameron to go out there and push her brand.
And even if they go out there and play to some of her mishaps in the past, when on Tough Enough, when they asked her favorite match, and what'd you say, like Alicia Fox versus Melina, or when she was demanding that the ref make the 3 count when Naomi was laying face down, or maybe they play to that, so they can use that to their advantage as they're trying to positively build up Nyla in some fashion. If they would have brought someone else in and used them like that, then everyone would be in an uproar. Oh my, I can't believe that they would disrespect this talent like this. That's what we would have got. It's something that we kind of mentioned here as well. I think, we could spin off on a whole nother show with our spinoff topics, but not just maybe those that have found their way into professional wrestling, or maybe those that got involved for, we'll say for the sake of the conversation here, wrong reasons. And no matter if they fell in love or whatever, is maybe the number of second and third generation individuals that are simply relying on professional wrestling for those big paydays.
That is a very good point. And, in going along with Cameron, I believe she's using a different name in AEW, obviously for...
she's going under her real name. Which,
And I also noticed
Ariana Andrews or something.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And
now, I will say, when she said "I'm back," did any? I want to know the percentage of people. It's got to be like less than 1%. They're like, "Hey, it's
Cameron."
Yeah.
And on the other side of that, I guess that debut match was. I think that they're gonna. I believe it's, if it hasn't already happened, it's going to be next week. Formerly from NXT, Tainara Conti is going to be in that match as well. So it looks like she maybe has some kind of handshake agreement or doing something with AEW as well.
A lot
so
of this too is where they're taping at. It's how can people get there without travel?
Right. So
because a lot of places, when you go to Florida now, if you return home, they've got they're, I guess it's not mandatory. How do you enforce it? But they're requesting that you self quarantine. Some of these states are getting behind that, so it's okay. Who's within the Jacksonville area that can get here within driving?
Yep.
Maybe we don't have to put them up. You got to think right now. WWE's reporting record revenue numbers.
Yeah.
It's they're sitting all this because they're not using that travel. They're not booking arenas. They're not on the road and all that.
Yep.
They've got those huge television deals. AEW never had all that big of a bank. They weren't doing the live events. They were heavily relying on those gates, going town to town each and every week. That must see Dynamite programming. They've lost all that, and you gotta believe, no matter what the circumstance, the longer it goes, the shorter the leash gets tightened from Papa Khan.
Yeah. And this could branch off into a lot of the topic, which I think we'll kind of possibly address next week here, because I've been seeing a lot of people posting about this, of how AEW is becoming the dumping ground for all the unwanted WWE talent. We've mentioned it as well. And Rick made a very good point, where Dynamite is being taped has a big thing to do with it. We have all this talent in the area looking for things to do, and Cody and the AEW crew are saying, come and work with us. If you're not doing anything, if you're available, come over with us. So I think we're kind of seeing some skewed kind of opinions on this, when people are just looking too much on the surface and going, oh, well, AEW is just taking all the cast-offs and all the unwanteds and whatnot. I think you could possibly make that argument, but at the same time, like I had said, we have room for these people to be used. Why not use them? If it can be good. All I can say is, if they're going to do it, with Cameron and with Tainara and some of the other ones, as long as you're going to go on there, at least make it good. No, don't just kind of half-ass it or just do it for the payday. Actually look like you care. That's all I ask.
6 weeks ago, the WWE was vilified, and they were bastards for firing these people. And now the fans are screaming that AEW is making a major mistake by hiring them.
It's some interesting things going on there. Yeah. People, and another one too, for the longest time, and us as well, we were crying for that alternative to WWE, and now we're seeing people turn on the AEW product already. They're already too much like WWE. It's like you guys were the ones clamoring for this alternative, and now that you have the alternative, you hate it. Fans can be so fickle. I'm telling you,
it's not an alternative. They're turning into WWE light.
Yeah, they're definitely true to a certain extent there. All right, guys. Well, let's wrap it up for this week. I'm sure we could probably go for hours and hours and make this like a 5-hour episode if we wanted to, but
you know what? We probably could. And since you mentioned an alternative, okay, so I'm going to play this for everybody. Here is your alternative.
There we go.
Hi, my name is Barry Ratcliffe. You might recognize me from such films as The Longest Ride or Dead 2. Now, as a successful actor, I have 2 planes, a supermodel wife, countless exotic cars, and a ton of cash. You might think it couldn't get any better than this, but you'd be wrong. For only $4.99, you can get OVWWrestlingNetwork.com. That's OVWWrestlingNetwork.com for only $4.99. Now, will your life be as good as this? No. Will it be better? Yes, and I guarantee that. That's not valid anywhere. OVWWrestlingNetwork.com is only $4.99. Tomorrow's yesterday is today. Prices so low, they're insane.
Yeah, there you go. Even our friend Dusty Gold is going to be a regular up there on OVW. I know, Rick, you are doing some stuff with them. Our friend Michael Melkor, $5 a month for all that OVW content. I think that's a pretty sweet deal.
Yes, it is. I wanted to make sure that we plugged that for all of our friends over at OVW because... we don't get any type of compensation from OVW at all, but we love the product and we love the people there. And I guess kind of Al Snow, right? Al Snow is OVW.
Yes,
so in a roundabout way, we're family. So we got to support them.
Absolutely. All right, well, before we wrap it up here, our guest, Mr. Ric Vickrey, go ahead and plug your social media and everything that you're up to these days.
Well, for everybody out there, as we're just wrapping up here on Turnbuckle Talk, a must listen. Your next podcast, head right on over to hackerhamin.podbean.com, the Monday Locker Room with myself, the great Ben Hamin, the Dr. Ted McNailer, the Man Beast, both individuals of OVW fame. But we are joined by the special guest, the man of the hour, the hustler, Rip Rogers, the endless wealth of knowledge that is shared throughout, our hour 45 to an hour minute conversation with him. Must listen. You're going to want to check that out. And in addition to that, all of the content that you get from the hackerhamin.podbean.com, week-long original programming from the pros as I've mentioned. You got Ted McNailer, Ben Hamin, in addition to that, Strangler Steve King, Chris Silvio, on and on. All the original programming, breaking down the headlines, the shows, the ins and outs of professional wrestling. If you want true insight, how the hell could I forget there? Stevie Richards.
Yes.
How could I forget there? So much going on over, again, it's hackerhamin.podbean.com. Or you can keep up with me personally, Ric Vickrey, Richard Bronson Vickrey, across all social media at The Real RBV.
Fantastic. And for myself, of course, you can find me on Facebook if you so wish. Just look up my name, Joe Moore, and you can find me there. I don't really do Twitter or Instagram, so you likely won't find me on there. But recently for myself, this just over the last few days here, Rick had mentioned the Hamin Media Group. I'm going to be doing some work with you guys over there. I'm going to be doing some audio producing for a few of the shows over there, so looking forward to doing some of that work over there. And that's really about it for myself. Karl, we've given some love to collarandelbowbrand.com, but how about a little love for our other sponsor, Phoenix? I know you've been using their products a little bit lately. How's that been going?
I have been using what they call their super greens, and the super greens have been doing amazing for me. I am super happy with the product so far. Go and check out fnxfit.com over there, or you can take a look down below in the ticker there. That is the link that we have for our personal little area on FNX Fit or Phoenix Fit. Use our promo code TBTalkPod, all one word, and you're going to get 15% off your entire order, which is just an amazing deal. They've got pre-workout, they've got post-workout, they've got protein powders, they've got the super greens, they've got testosterone, they've got collagen builders and restore. So a lot of different products there, and they have shirts and shorts and merchandise as well. So if you just want to represent the brand by wearing a t-shirt, go and buy one and save 15% off when you use the promo code TBTalkPod. As for our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we're found at TBTalkPod. And myself, see my name right there? So, I mean, you can always try searching out that name, and it should bring you to Facebook as well. That is where I am. But yeah, I mean, go ahead and check out our social medias. Again, I don't want to forget, we have a contest going on. We want to hit 500 people on our Facebook page at TB Talk Pod. All you have to do is send us a message. Let us know that you have shared it or that you have invited people to come to the page. And once we hit 500 people, we're going to be having that draw for an autographed Jake the Snake Roberts photo, as well as have you on the show as a guest host of Turnbuckle Talk. So help us out, get us to the 500, be a guest on the show, and win yourself an autographed Jake the Snake Roberts photo.
And just to make mention one thing before we do wrap it up here, of course, Karl has set up my Shopify with some of our own stuff there. I see it coming up on the ticker there. I mean, we've got shirts over there, we've got mugs, we've got hats, we've got COVID masks if you like wearing masks. So yeah, I've actually ordered myself a shirt, and hopefully it's coming soon. And I'll be sporting it on the podcast here to kind of show off. Karl's got the purple Turnbuckle Talk one there as well. So yeah, some cool stuff there. And of course, the proceeds from that go to support our show as well. So some good stuff there. We got so much going on. Damn.
Right? We definitely do.
All right, guys.
We need those checks to start coming in the mail, though.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we're working on that. All right, guys. Well, we'll wrap it for this week, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Have a nice day.
It's me. It's an honor to be the beat. As you can tell in the background, we are out celebrating. That is what we do here at hittingthemarks.com. And I invite everyone to continue to tune in to Turnbuckle Talk, but check out all of our other shows we have. You can find that all at hittingthemarks.com.
Run.
I used to wear jeans, I mean Italian slacks. I had long shaggy hair, it's cut short and slick back. I drank a $3 wine, with cocktails to do. Because downtown came my time for you. I used to think the Coke came in a bottle of can. I said going well, I wasn't right on a man. I hush puppies and sneakers, no alligator shoes. Because downtown came my time for you. When you told me that you loved me, said I could be your man. Then you said I had no more style than right in a garbage can. So you took me uptown, you made you drive away. You taught me how to eat snails and caviar on a plate. I'm all sitting in the alley with the boys drinking booze. Because downtown came my time for you. When you told me that you loved me, said I could be your man. Then you said I had no more style than right in a garbage can. My manicure is at 5, French lessons at 6. Oh, don't tell me you can teach a dog new tricks. We're going out on the town, my friends spread the news. Because downtown came my time for you. Darling, downtown came my time for you. Oh, darling, downtown came my time.